This all started almost 7 years ago. Back then, my life was falling apart. Personally, professionally, financially. I was going through a brutal divorce with my now ex-wife, Rachel. We had been married for 8 years, and things slowly went downhill over time. I wasn't blameless, sure. I worked a lot, stressed over my startup, and emotionally, I probably checked out near the end. But Rachel had her own ways of hurting the marriage. She was constantly critical, dismissive of my work, and eventually, I found out she was seeing someone else. Still, I tried to keep things civil during the divorce. We didn't have kids, thankfully. But what made it complicated was our finances. At that point, my startup, a small logistics tech company, was barely surviving. I had taken out personal loans, mortgaged my car, and was burning through savings. Rachel had a stable job as a marketing manager and earned more than I did at that time. During the settlement, she pushed hard for a clean break with a decent chunk of assets, some savings, half the equity in our apartment, which we sold, and even demanded a portion of what little stock I had left in my company. Her lawyer made it clear they wanted to future-proof her if the company ever succeeded. I couldn't believe the audacity. The company was practically a corpse, but I just wanted to move on and stop bleeding emotionally and financially. So after months of back and forth, I agreed to a final settlement. She walked away with a pretty generous deal considering the state I was in. Fast forward 4 years. I somehow survived the tough years. After 2 near bankruptcies, I finally turned things around. We found a niche market, got a major client in the Midwest, and then, boom, COVID hit, and weirdly, it helped our business. Everyone needed fast, last-mile delivery. My platform exploded. By year 5, I was making more in a month than I used to make in a year. Life was finally good. I'd paid off debts, bought a modest home, and even started dating again. I thought Rachel was long gone from my life. Then came the letter. It was from her lawyer. She was suing me, claiming she was owed more money. Asterisk a share of the business profits asterisk. Because, in her words, I supported him during the foundation of the business, and the original settlement did not fairly reflect the future value of the company. I was in disbelief. We had a final divorce agreement. It was signed, notarized, and filed. She had already taken way more than I could afford back then, and now that I had finally clawed my way up, she wanted more? I called my lawyer immediately. He said, "This is ridiculous, but it's not the first time something like this has happened. If she's serious, we'll have to go to court." And just like that, I was back in a war I thought I'd already won. I honestly thought this would be dismissed immediately. I mean, how do you reopen a finalized divorce settlement from nearly 4 years ago? Turns out, family law has gray areas, lots of them. Her lawyer was arguing that she signed the original settlement under misleading financial expectations and that I had intentionally undervalued the potential of my business. Absolute garbage. They even dug up old emails I had sent her during our separation, where I'd vented about the startup failing, saying stuff like, "I don't think it'll ever work," or "I'm probably going to shut it down." That was me being honest at my lowest point, not part of some master plan to hide future wealth. My lawyer, Dan, was a seasoned guy, mid-50s, calm, sharp as hell. He told me not to panic. She's trying to play the sympathy card. Judges see this kind of thing more than you'd think. The key is showing that the agreement was fair at the time it was signed. We'll focus on that. Still, I couldn't help but feel nervous. Rachel was no fool. Her lawyer was aggressive, and they knew exactly how to spin the narrative. According to their claim, Rachel had sacrificed years of her career to emotionally and financially support me through the early startup years. They framed it like she was my unpaid business partner, not just a spouse. That part stung. She never invested in the business, never attended a pitch meeting, never offered to help financially. If anything, she made fun of my idea more times than I could count. Court filings flew back and forth for months. The stress started creeping back in. I couldn't sleep. My new relationship was starting to suffer. My girlfriend, Emma, was incredibly supportive, but I could tell this whole thing was weighing on her too. Then came the deposition. Rachel showed up, dressed like she was going to a funeral, dark clothes, minimal makeup, very humble. She gave this dramatic account of how she had emotionally carried me during the early years, and how she gave up job promotions to support our marriage. She even said she only settled back then because I begged her not to take more. When it was my turn, I laid it all out. I explained how I'd been drowning in debt, how she chose to walk away, how she got what she asked for. I even had receipts, emails, bank statements, even text messages where she talked about starting fresh and being glad to be rid of my loser business. The judge listened carefully but didn't reveal much. All we could do was wait. A few weeks later, we got word the case would proceed to trial. She was serious. She really thought she could grab more now that I had something to lose. That's when I stopped playing defense. I told Dan, if she wants to fight, we fight. But I want everything on record. The truth, every lie she told, everything she already took, and what this is really about. And that's when we started digging into her finances and past behavior. Once we decided to go on the offensive, Dan and his team started pulling everything. We got court orders to examine her financial records, and any communications that might prove this was less about fairness and more about greed. And boy, did it pay off. Turns out, Rachel had done pretty well for herself since the divorce. Remember the guy she was seeing while we were still married? She married him. He's a commercial real estate developer, and they live in a gated neighborhood in a house that costs more than mine. She had also started a side business in interior design, which was bringing in 6 figures a year, none of which she disclosed to the court at first. But here's the kicker. We found messages, private ones, from her old email, which, shockingly, she hadn't closed or secured, talking to a friend just weeks before filing the new lawsuit. One line stood out like a lightning bolt. "He's rich now. I saw his company in the paper. I regret not taking more back then. I'm going to fix that." That was the smoking gun. Dan smiled when I showed it to him. This might just be our checkmate. At trial, her team tried to downplay the email, claimed it was taken out of context, just venting. But the judge wasn't buying it. The narrative that she was some selfless, broken ex-wife just trying to survive? Gone. The financial records, the emails, and even witness statements, including from a mutual friend who testified, reluctantly, that Rachel always talked about how she played the game right during the divorce, all painted the picture. She saw my success and wanted a second bite. After 2 full days in court, the judge delivered the ruling. In short, the original divorce settlement stood. Rachel had no legal or moral claim to any future earnings from the business. The court found no evidence that I had misled or withheld information. In fact, they agreed that the risks were clear at the time of divorce, and she made her decisions with full legal counsel. But it didn't stop there. Because of the false claims and the attempt to mislead the court, the judge ordered her to pay a portion of my legal fees. Not all, but enough to sting. Her expression when that ruling came down? Priceless. Afterward, I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high for the first time in a long time. It wasn't just about the money. It was about standing up for myself. About not letting someone rewrite history just because success finally showed up. To anyone out there dealing with a messy breakup or unfair divorce, document everything. Be honest, even when it hurts. And if they come back years later trying to take what you've bled for, don't be afraid to fight back. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.